George Bizos was a legendary human rights lawyer and activist, but he was also a much-loved family man. As we indicated earlier, he passed away yesterday at the age of 92. I'm now joined by his grandson, Nick Bizos. Nick, good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time on eNCA, and condolences once again to you and your family. How are you guys keeping up as a family?
Thanks very much, Clement. Obviously a very difficult time for us at the moment. When somebody is such a legend in your community and in your country, you often think that they might be immortal as well. So although he'd been sick and suffering for quite a while now, it still comes as quite a blow to the family and to the community now that he's passed on.
I understand that you were with your grandfather yesterday.
Unfortunately, I wasn't with him yesterday, but the rest of the family was there.
Okay.
I've been spending my days of lockdown working from his home, actually, and helping with moving him around and keeping him company and keeping him going over the past couple of weeks. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to be there yesterday.
How are you reflecting on his life as a grandson, having spent so much time with him? I mean, he had a big impact on South Africans. He played a key role in the architecture of this constitutional democracy. What impact did he have on you as a grandson?
Sure. I mean, a massive one, Clement. Obviously, he, from a schooling perspective, he founded the school that I attended, Seheti, which the previous report mentioned, and his principles and values and the way he pushed those through that community and through that school had a big impact on me. The school's motto was Nati Safton, which means know thyself. I think that's a massive way of the way I'm trying to lead my life and try and know as much as I can about me and the way I project myself into the world. I think the most important lesson Papu taught me was humility and the way that you come across and the way you treat your fellow man. He was obviously surrounded by giants and people that will be talked about for ages. And yet I don't know if he ever saw himself as part of that. So he was never boastful or arrogant about what he'd achieved and who he'd helped and how he'd helped them. And I think that's the biggest lesson he's taught me.
What lessons do you think us then as South Africans we can take from his incredible life?
Sure. I think the most important one is that your material possessions don't define you. I think it's your actions, your words, your way about treating people that can do nothing for you. The way that you give of yourself. He really wore his fame well. He always had time for the man on the street or man or woman or child, someone who wanted an autograph or shake his hand or take a photo. He was never bigger than them. And I think that's the kind of lessons that South Africans as a whole can learn, to see that there's a difference between doing what's right and what's easy, and it's often that you need to choose to do what's right. And I think that's what Papu strove to do every single day, is to do what was right.
One of the things that touched me about him was his compassion and passion, and he was quick to shed some tears of passion and compassion. Was he always like that, even at a personal level?
Yeah, forever. I think there's not many stories where he didn't tear up, even if the story didn't seem too sad. I think if we look back on his story and being almost driven out of his home in the Second World War, I think everything meant a lot to him. I think he came here to South Africa with almost nothing and built himself and his family up. And so I think he knew that every day was an important day, and every lesson learned and every story to be told was an important story. And so it all meant a lot to him. So yes, it wasn't just an act in public. It was definitely the way he was with us, whether it's his grandkids or his children, or his close friends. That's the way he conveyed most of his stories.
Yeah, it was just incredible. What are some of the personal things you can share with us about him? I mean, that report from Heidi Giokos tells us that, he was great. He was a gardener. His friend was telling us he was great with braaiing. What else are you able to share with us?
So he was a raconteur. He loved to tell stories. He loved to impart wisdom, whether it was philosophy or poetry or song. He was always regaling us with something he'd read or somebody he'd learned about. From a gardening perspective, I think he used a lot of the time in the garden to actually think about his cases. I mean, my dad related that story that he'd actually spend time talking to himself in the garden about how to approach certain legal cases. He loved Greece, he loved South Africa, he loved to show us our home in Greece, where he came from, and he loved to show his friends those places. He took Nelson Mandela there many years ago, and he loved what Heidi mentioned, philotimo and philoxenia. It's ideals of honor and ideals of how you treat strangers, and I think that was the way he approached people that he didn't know, and that's the way he approached people like Nelson Mandela and people that would come up to him in Woolworths. So he was definitely one to keep giving wisdom, keep giving stories, and keep telling us what was on his mind.
Yeah, what an incredible man. Nick, thank you so much for reflecting on your grandfather this evening, and also thanks to you guys as a family for sharing him with the rest of South Africa.
Thanks very much, Clement.
Thank you.